Have you ever wondered why you struggle with sleep so much? Does it seem like you've tried all the logical things and it hasn't made a difference? Well, we're here to tell you that it's actually the illogical things that are holding
Hmm.
you back.
Yeah.
Trauma, big or small, can get stuck in our primitive brain and our survival brain. And that part of our brain isn't logical. It's just trying to keep us safe. It's just trying to make a difference in a world that feels overwhelming and chaotic to it most of the time. The reason you can't sleep isn't because you didn't think about it enough, obviously, and it's not because you didn't try hard enough. It's because a lot of the blocks that people have are subconscious. They happen before we were verbal, even for a lot of us.
That's right.
And we're going to start there. We're going to start erasing those old patterns that happened before you were even verbal. Because once you start erasing those, everything else falls in place so much easier. It's like you have this giant lever and you can just, like, with a little bit of effort, move things in ways you never could move them before. And we are so proud of you for being here, for having let yourself find this and giving yourself permission to listen right now.
So, one of the things that really intrigued me when we looked at sleep from the vantage point of what we've learned in energy tapping about what sets up a pattern that's disruptive, that's disharmonious, and how does that impact our work, our play, and now our sleep. And what's one of the key things that you learned about how infants can handle how they're treated around sleep?
Yeah, there's two main points that we're going to touch on in this video that are so key. And I really do believe that most of us were impacted. Like 99.9% of our
Yeah.
human population was affected by one or both of these. So the very first thing is there's increasing number of studies showing that infants need to be near adults.
Hmm.
They regulate their breathing and their heart rate based on the feedback from others around them. They're too little. They've always been nestled in their mother's womb and there was a constant heartbeat and, like, there was a rhythm.
Yeah.
They could follow it. And what do we do in modern society? You take the baby out, you smack it, you throw it in a crib all by itself, bundled up in a cold, isolated room.
Yeah.
And there might be other babies around, but they don't know how to regulate either. And then we take them home and we put them in the nice new nursery that we painted for them for the most part, and people do this.
Yeah.
And we thought that was the right thing to do. After all, I like my own room. Wouldn't the baby like its own room? It's like a sign of abundance, in fact. But there's a lot of evidence that SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, may be caused, at least in part, because these children don't have a way. These little babies that haven't learned how to regulate their breathing and their heart rate are left without. And even puppies, if you bring a puppy home, they'll tell you, oh, give it an alarm clock or something, or a warm sock or something, or the water bottle or whatever. But we don't do that with our babies. And so little kids, our primitive brain is designed to keep us safe. And it's going, this is really dangerous. But we
Yeah.
don't know how to communicate it. We have no way of communicating it. So going to bed is associated often from very, very early with this feeling of alone, isolated, scary, not being able to control yourself or the environment. And we're going to do some tapping with you in a few minutes on that, because even if you don't think that affects you, we invite you to try it out. Tapping will never imprint something that's not true. It's not going to make something true that's not. And if it's not true, as you tap, you go, oh, this isn't my problem. You'll have clarity. You can check that off.
Yeah.
But if it does affect you, clearing this out gives you a firm foundation to build your sleep on. Because if you're fighting your primitive brain that's imprinted from such an early age about something so fearful, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle all the time. And we want to level the playing field for you so you can really get that sleep, so you can make a difference in the world.
So what's the second thing?
Okay, so this is one of the things that got me so excited about doing this program, and we actually found it a while ago and been doing research since then, is that we were taught, and most of us, most of the people watching this now,
Hmm.
were raised in a time when we were told that infants needed, at 6 months, they were old enough to self-soothe,
Right.
and you should let them cry until they stopped crying, because that taught them that they can take care of themselves. And that was what was taught. And at the time, there was no evidence to say it wasn't true. And so generations of parents would fight, bite their fingernails or resist going in when the baby was crying. At 6 months, that's the time you let her cry until she stops. And then she stopped. Okay, it worked. Okay, baby stops crying when I don't go. Yeah, and I can sleep and I can get other things done. I'm good. But in the last 10 years, there's been huge advances in neuroscience and ways that we can measure how bodies react. And relatively recently, there were some studies on babies when they did this self-soothing exercise. And they would put the baby down, the baby would cry and cry, and the baby would stop crying. And from outside, it looked like the baby was either resting or just laying there or sleeping. But their blood pressure was really high. Their heart rate was racing. Their cortisol levels were through the roof. The baby had just got into freeze. They'd asked and asked for help. They'd pleaded for attention, and nobody came. And so when you feel powerless over something that feels life-threatening as a child, you have fight, flight, freeze. Well, the baby cried and cried, maybe threw things, maybe did whatever it could to try to get the attention, and then realized that there was nothing it could do. And so it gave up. And almost always that is associated with putting the baby in the crib, going to bed. Put the baby in bed, let them cry. And that's anchored to going to bed. If I go to bed, I will feel powerless. I will have this traumatic experience. I will feel overwhelmed and powerless. Yeah. And think of yourself, just as you think about going to bed, do you want to go to bed? Is there, delight and, I get to go rest my body and feel good for the morning? Or is that resistance and fear?
And we know that from surveying over 1,000 people, that so many of them don't look forward to that going to bed. And as we've dug deeper with clients and with follow-up questions, this is what we've seen. Now, I want to say that as you're listening to us, you may start feeling some physical reactions. You're always welcome to start tapping as soon as you start feeling something. And you may have been the kind of parent that included all or part of these behaviors as part of you parenting your children. And so what's cool about the process that we're going to be doing is that just if that was true, be aware of it, and you may feel some of that in your body. But we're going back in time to the energy that you experienced that set it all in motion. Oh, this is what it's like to be this age, and we reflect that. The more that we change about our own energy, the more that we carry forward something very different into the future, including every night's sleep from this point forward. So we're going to do two different types of tapping with you. And the first one that we're going to do next is about releasing some of these feelings on both of these issues. So tune into the next video.
Great job.